Hello, everyone. 2024 is going to be the most challenging year in many of our lifetimes. The Edwin Black Show is recommending a short list of books that should help you understand the turbulent times to come and how they have been shaped by the turbulent times of the past. We're going to start with one of my favorite authors. It's Faye Lincoln, the author of Values That Shape the World. And I'm just wondering, Faye, in a minute, can you tell us how your involvement with values of humanity has been damaged or affected by the turbulent, horrible massacres of October 7th and what we see unfolding before us?
Well, now more than ever, values are even more important because of everything that's happened. We need a new way of viewing the events of our world through the lens of values. With the crisis of war in Israel and Ukraine, with the constraints of supply chain issues between the United States and China, the world is shifting in new directions. So how do we make sense of the chaos and bring personal clarity to our future? In my book, Values That Shape the World, we look through the lens of Jewish history from a societal perspective, highlighting the values that have created our world today and reinvigorating our Jewish values to break through the old and create new solutions to our current challenges. A special epilogue focuses on the future values that can be applied to today's crises and geopolitical tensions in the world. We can use these future values to develop new models for technology, artificial intelligence, and shifting regional geopolitics that will benefit humanity for the greater good. During this time of war in Israel, now more than ever, we as diaspora Jews must not only stick together and voice our concerns, but also bring fresh solutions through the lens of Jewish values to the world today. This is a special and unique role that we can play to help Israel.
Thank you very much for that. I've got the hardback, which is my favorite version. I see you alluded to your new epilogue, and I hope that everyone will run and grab Values That Shape the World by Faye Lincoln. And now we want to go to another book, and that is, it's a fat book, so get your wrist brace out. This is Judaism, Zionism, and the Land of Israel. It's by Rabbi Yotav Eliach, and it traces the 4,000-year religious, ideological, and historical story of the Jewish nation. Now, what's interesting is this book came out several years ago, and suddenly, from October 7th, we observed a tremendous spike in this particular book. And I'm saying to myself, why have we seen such a spike? And the answer is, people are ignorant, and they're trying to address their ignorance, and they're reaching out for information. We have the author, Rabbi Eliach, with us. And Rabbi, in a minute or so, tell us why this book is imperative for the year ahead.
First, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I kind of want to dovetail on what you said. The reality is that I think many people who, I guess, instinctively or reflexively support Israel and identify with Israel, found themselves bewildered, shocked, not just at the events of October 7th, which was really a Nazi-style mini Holocaust pogrom, but at the reaction of the world. The reaction was not what we thought, we meaning the Western world. Unfortunately, I am more cynical. We couldn't believe that even after all the Holocaust education given and the Holocaust museums and all the sensitivity, you would think that the people's reaction would be more positive and more understanding. Quite the opposite. There's been an outpouring of anti-Semitism, the likes of we haven't seen since the Third Reich in Germany and in Austria in the 1930s. And I think many people, especially people who have sons and daughters in colleges, in graduate schools, who are young professionals or who work in Manhattan and in large cities, realize that their younger generation knows absolutely nothing. and they're hearing a vile, twisted, perverse narrative of what happens on October 7th, to the point that Israel and the Jews deserve it. And my book basically is kind of an antidote. It tells our story. Not only are we not any of the things that we're accused of, colonialist, imperialist, neo-colonialist, we're one of the most ancient peoples on earth. We are a people who are indigenous to the land of Israel. The history, the Bible, archaeology, the documentation all shows that. So I think people are reaching out, and I urge people to try to get this book for themselves as a refresher, and for your children, your grandchildren. They don't know any of this. And the good news is that what my book says is the default feeling in the state of Israel. Israelis, certainly all of those in uniform and all our families, the slogan in Israel is, Ein lanu eretz acheret. We have no other land. Every Israeli now has a new thing, a new chain they wear around their neck. It's the Magen David and the map of Israel. We only have one home. And what our enemies don't understand is that we're not the British in South Africa or in India. We're not the French in Morocco. We are the French in France. We are the English in England, and even older than they are. And this book helps make that point.
Thank you very much. It's not a quick read, but it's something that people are buying every day, and they're buying it because they have a thirst for knowledge. Another part of our complicated 2024 scenario is, where are we going with the Trump election? Ironically, one of the most interesting books has been written by Bob Zeidman, and he actually sued the Pillow Man when he took him up on one of his tech challenges, because it turns out that Bob Zeidman is one of our nation's foremost forensic computer guys. Bob, tell us about your book, and briefly what your experience is and why it's important for people to know about in 2024.
Sure, Edwin, thank you for having me and for recommending my book. Here's my book, Election Hacks. It's about my situation where I took on Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow, who had been saying that he had data that showed that the 2020 election was hacked by China, and that China purposely gave votes from Trump to Biden because they wanted Biden to be president and not Trump. He invited a number of cyber experts, and I got myself invited to a symposium where he presented the data, and he offered $5 million to anyone who could prove that the data was not proof of election hacking. So I went there not really expecting to be able to prove anything in 3 days, but in fact, in 3 hours, I was able to prove that his data was bogus, and that at least he had no proof that the election was thrown from Trump to Biden. And I think this is an important book. I'm really glad that you agree with me. It's important because it not only talks about the 2020 election, which there's been a lot of controversy about, and at least in my experience, people like Lindell and his team are spreading misinformation about the election being hacked. Whether it was hacked or not, I don't know, but I do know that Mike Lindell does not have proof of election hacking. So I think that this has to do not only with the 2020 election, but really is a warning for the 2024 election. Mike Lindell is still going around saying that elections are being hacked. He's promoting lawsuits in every state where the vote was close between Trump and Biden. And it's basically spreading a lot of myths and false information. I've exposed it in my book. And I think that it's obviously still happening going into the 2024 election, and people need to know about it.
All right, this book is available at Amazon anywhere in the world, correct?
That's correct. Election Hacks. It's available on Amazon in print, audiobook, ebook, and hard copy.
All right, and now we have one of my favorite books, a very prescient book that probably takes a much more compelling and opposite view, and it's The Multi-Front War by Kenneth Abramowitz. The subtitle is Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, pandemics, and racial strife. And what's interesting to me is I have the third edition that's just been released specifically to warn us about 2024. Ken, take it away for 2 or 3 minutes and tell us why this is an important book.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Well, borrowing from our Declaration of Independence, I monitor life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and I measure our government, any government, as to how good a job are they doing of protecting the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of the population. And our government is failing us. It's not protecting our life or liberty or pursuit of happiness. The border is open. We're being invaded by 3 to 5 million illegals every year. It's a country's undergoing a full-scale invasion, basically by its enemies. Other outside enemies like Russia and Iran and China are emboldened. In terms of freedom, we do not have proper freedom of speech. Federalism is being ignored. The federal government is trying to do much more than it's capable of doing. And relative to happiness, there's too many regulations. In DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion is tremendously hurting the country. We're a country of a meritocracy, and we need the best people for a best job. Doesn't matter what flavor of person that is. So the government is basically failing to protect our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And that's basically why we need regime change. And that was the key message of my new 2024 chapter in my new third edition of the Multi-Front War.
All right, and this book is available worldwide in Apple, Google, Walmart, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo in 64 countries, correct?
Yes, sounds reasonable to me.
All right.
Available everywhere.
All right, it's sold globally. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to talk about one of my books. It's The Farhood. Now, you know, it's interesting. I published this book in 2010, so that's 13 years ago. It was a bestseller at the time, and it sells continuously, a little bit here and a little bit there, as people want to know about the June 1st, 1941 Arab Nazi pogrom, in which parents were killed in front of their children and children were killed in front of their parents. And I know you find that language identical to what has been said about October 7th by just about everyone. And so this book jumped to the top of my personal list. It now exceeds the copies of IBM and the Holocaust and War Against the Weak. And it also covers a 1929 massacre in Hebron, massacre of Jews by rioting Arabs who did the same thing. They baked the baker in his oven. They cut open the belly of the banker and burnt his bank papers in his stomach. They committed all sorts of terrible acts. So here it is, The Farhood. It's available in hardback, in paperback, and an ebook, wherever books are sold. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.